Gentlemen,
Look at that shiny ass logo. Who made that?
me. But never mind my praise. We must salute our fallen comrade. Larry, salute.
Who am I saluting?
We are saluting our communist overlord, Donald J. Trump, as he is indicted on, what is it?
34 counts.
34 counts, felony counts and charges. The MAGA communists must be tweaking. I haven't been on MAGA communist Twitter today because I wanted to see it by his hand.
I don't think I've ever been on MAGA communist Twitter.
You're not missing
avoid
it.
it.
You're not. You gotta ask Lumpy about it. She'll tell you it's a nightmare. But you're fine. Don't go on there. But anyway, so the liberals are extremely excited on this Friday, the Friday of our Lord, because Donald J. Trump has been officially the first felon president, at least legally speaking. My observation immediately is going on Facebook and on Instagram or whatever is all the liberals that I know in my life who haven't posted anything about Gaza in the last almost year, but are like, Trump's going to jail. And they're so emphatic and they're so excited. And I really think, like meme aside, it goes to show you where a lot of these liberal elitists, where their mentality is at. They truly believe that now that Trump, I doubt he's going to actual prison. And if he does go to prison, he's probably going to go to big boy rich guy prison. And by that, I mean his house, where he gets like weekends off. And they're going to call it justice and continue on believing that the system is working for everybody and is free and fair for all the Americans in the world. So let's see here what we have here. Found guilty on all counts, baby. I guess collective hates democracy. Yeah, we do. A Manhattan jury found Donald Trump guilty of all 34 charges of falsifying business records Thursday, an unprecedented and historic verdict that makes Trump the first former president in American history to be convicted of a felony. Not only is Trump the first former president to become guilty of a felony, he's also the first major party president nominee, this is from CNN, by the way, to be convicted of a crime in the midst of a campaign for the White House. And if he defeats President Joe Biden in November, he will be the first sitting president in history to be to be a convicted felon. The verdict in the hush money trial was announced after jurors deliberated for nearly 12 hours over 2 days. It will ultimately be up to the voters in November to decide the significance of the guilty verdict delivered by 12 ordinary New Yorkers, which on a legal basis does not prevent him from being elected president again. My question is, when are we gonna charge Joe Biden for aiding and abetting a genocide, or Obama for killing thousands of Iraqi and Afghanistanis and Yemenis people throughout the world? I mean, it's a show trial, and if you have any macodium of awareness, you should be able to see that.
Oh, hang on one sec. We're never gonna do that.
But why?
Because I'll put it this way. When I was at work earlier, right, all the people in my office space were talking about Trump being arrested, right? And it was occupying their minds, and they were talking about how they don't like Joe Biden, but they don't have a problem with him, and they don't see him as having done anything wrong. He's the lesser of the two evils. So ultimately, as long as we keep Trump out of office, then justice has been served, as far as they're concerned. And that's just the prevailing ideology of the people that are in charge and in power. So why would they charge Joe Biden with anything, despite the heavy evidence of his crimes?
Because Joe Biden's policies don't adversely affect them and their money, so they're they're just going to keep it running. Comrade Larry, I can see your discontent with the situation. Any thoughts?
I hope this is a great victory for my blue team, man. Trump's going to prison, brother.
He is, brother.
Yeah, we're no, it's ridiculous. Nothing's going to come of this. They're not going to make him do the perp walk in the orange jumpsuit.
That'd be funny though.
We'll get
It
plenty
would
of AI
it would be
photos.
hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
but like of all the presidents, like he sucks, but of all the presidents that we've had, he is actually among criminal charges is one of the least egregious criminals we've ever had. Just Biden on Gaza alone deserves to be charged on many things. Obama, Bush, Trump too. It's not like imperialism. American military machine stopped while it was under Trump. It's just that he was in there for 4 short years in a fairly somewhat calm international period of time, more or less. We weren't doing a whole lot of killing during his time period or funding killing. And it's just ridiculous.
All the males had to become combat age in the time between Obama killing everybody and Joe Biden being president. So gets it 8 years.
True.
So that adds up, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if Trump had won in 2020, we'd still be, Gaza would still be happening, and unlike what the liberals claim, no, it wouldn't be worse. It would just be this.
Yeah, right. Like I don't understand that argument. Like how can it be worse? Like they literally, Joe Biden said that Rafah was the red line, and then Israel bombed Rafah. I imagine you guys saw the videos. I didn't. I can't. I've been given a description. It's a no-go for me, dog. I get it.
It's horrible.
I've seen the videos, and it's one of the most distressing things I think I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And if I encounter anyone still like pro-Israel, I'm just like, are you okay with that? Like, forget everything else for a second. Are you okay with that specific image? Because at the start of this thing, you were talking about it.
It just loops around and it's cavalcade of madness. But the Cheetos going to jail.
Yep,
Democracy
obviously.
is saved. We don't need the podcast anymore. Let's just throw it out. We can go back to our lives and go back to our brunch. We can keep it moving. But while we're discussing, let's talk about the never-ending atrocities the so-called state of Israel has committed. So I got an Al Jazeera article here. Israel's war on Gaza updates: Rafah hospital closes due to Israeli bombs. So I'm going to scroll down lumps to here's what happened today. The death toll from Israel's bombing of a tent camp housing displaced people as designated safe zone in Rafah is now 45, most of them women and children, leading to international outcries. So were those Hamas, really? Is the main question that Netanyahu and all those, essentially Nazis would have you believe. Netanyahu called the Italy attack a tragic incident that his government is investigating. I actually I was listening to a video when an Israeli spokesman was discussing that basically they used an incredibly small amount of munitions, the smallest amount that their jet fighters were able to carry, and a fire broke out. And that fire was probably because they had weapons in the camp. So therefore, it is not our fault. But that's like saying I lit the house on fire, and just because there was gas in the in the tank for the stove and the whole neighborhood blew up, that's not on me. That's because there was gas in the pipe. You know what I mean? Like, it's you set the fire, but whatever. What do I know? The Kouani hospital in Rafah has been rendered non-operational according to its director due to international attacks by Israeli forces on the hospital staff and surrounding areas. Algeria has requested an urgent meeting in the United Nations Security Council to discuss the situation in Rafah. All they do is discuss, and they don't do any actual action, because the United Nations is mostly led by what? The United States. The Iran-aligned Lebanese group Hezbollah says it has launched a barrage of rockets at northern Israel in response to a deadly Israeli strike outside a South Lebanon hospital earlier in the day. So for those of you who basically out of the loop in the future, wherever you are, like I said at the beginning, basically Rafah is a section of Palestine that was designated as a safe zone, or as the Israelis say, a safer zone, where in international conflicts, according to the so-called rules of war, basically civilians in what's designated as occupied territory by the occupying force are supposed to be provided a safe zone where arriving attacking forces basically say, hey, we're about to fuck this place up, you better leave, you should go here. And you should be able to go there in theory without being, bothered, without being attacked. You're supposed to be providing electricity. You're supposed to be provided amenities as non-combatants. That clearly doesn't happen. Rafah is essentially a tent city with, if I'm not mistaken, at least over 1 million people just in that one concentrated area. So Israel just decided to bomb essentially a tent city where there's no active combatants, there's no rockets being launched from that area. They're just doing it. Why? Because, as we've been discussing for the better part of a year now, this is an ongoing genocide. So there are some pretty distressing videos out there, trigger warning, death, of particularly the remains of an infant that has, gone all over the news, all over Twitter. And Israel's playing defense. Joe Biden is silent on it. That's just typical of the liberal, systemic, imperialistic system that is operating. You guys got any thoughts on that? I feel like there's not even really much to say because it's just endless terror that the United States sponsors.
Yeah, I mean, what more can be said at this point? We're 9 months into 8 months, whatever it is, into this. Unless you are just literally not paying attention to anything, which is quite possible, you are aware of what's going on, and if you are still defending this in any way, you're inhuman.
Yeah, you're not, bro. Yeah, like there's no way around it.
Like there's no threat of, like, Trump has already been president, right? You can't be so afraid of this man, this one particular great man, so-called, that you are unwilling to at least do the least bit of holding the crypt keeper in office accountable in any way. And so if you have decided and you have made your decision that it's more important to you that, and it's essentially class interest, because let's be honest, nobody's actually in the working class who struggles day to day is sitting here and telling us that we have to vote for Joe Biden. This is an issue of people in the bureaucracy. This is people in the labor aristocracy, the petty bourgeoisie. These are class interests being represented that are still telling us we have to vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. And maybe a small section of people who are just brainwashed by this class interest being promoted. But this is absolutely, I've got conservative folks in my area that are just working class, and they're conservative, like they're Trumpers, and they're sitting there like they recognize that this is fucked up. Okay, like, it's insane. And then, there's plenty of Trumpers also that are just complete white supremacists that are cheering this on. You can't deny that. Mm-hmm. But and then there's people that voted for Biden who are working class, who look at this and are saying, Jesus fucking Christ, I can barely pay for bread, and we're shipping out all of my stolen fucking value that the capitalists didn't take. Then the capitalist state takes some of it as well, and then they send it over there to murder children. And they get that. Like, they get that. They understand their class position on this, and they're watching a genocide unfold on their dollar.
It's pretty
it's disheartening. Like, people are rightfully pissed.
Yeah. Yeah, and they should be. And I did see that there's going to be another major protest in DC next weekend. I wish I didn't take so much time off recently from work that I could actually go, because I would go. But yeah, and it's all connected. It's all connected to the things that we constantly talk about. It's all connected to Cop City. It's all connected to the continuing police violence. It's all connected to, like Larry said, class interests. If you've been watching this podcast, if you've been keeping up with us, like, you have to really start to register who the people are around you in your life and what their values are or lack of values are, and act accordingly. Because, it could be your coworkers, it could be your cousin, it could be your mom, but people who are ostensibly silent in the face of Holocaust, that is who they are. That is their character. And I don't want to hear about excuses about, whether it's mental health or a physical disability. Not that those things don't make contributing to the voices that need to be heard an obstacle, but we all know plenty of people who, the three of us already struggle. We know plenty of people who struggle more than us. We know plenty of people who have a lot more ailments than us, and they still take the time to be like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
So you really gotta, I'll put it to you this way. When you're hanging, what's the next holiday coming up? It's summer. Okay, so when you're hanging out at the beach with your family and your dad decides to make some off comment about, how people in Palestine deserve that, your family is showing their character. You have to decide, are you complicit in that? Because if you cannot call it out with amongst your immediate cohorts, then you're enabling it, because it really is a person-to-person issue. But I digress. Let me see what we got here.
For every person that I encounter, I just keep saying the same thing. I can only look at so many dead kids.
Mm-hmm.
It like, I don't care what you think. Like, there's no way you can see that many dead kids or people picking up body parts out of rubble and think that it's justified.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so on topic, we will move on. U.S. pressure could derail ICC arrest warrants for Israel leaders. So basically, last week, the ICC issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and other top leaders of the Israeli government, basically meaning that countries that will enforce this, if Netanyahu or the gang or whatever travel internationally, as they arrive to, hubs and airports, those host countries are then legally obligated to physically arrest Netanyahu and the leaders. Now, in a lot of ways, this can be symbolic, where countries might not actually, or probably won't actually follow through with that. But there have been some outliers. I believe it was Norway. It might be in this article. I don't remember. That basically said, like, no, we will comply with that. Now, what does that mean on the international scale? So basically what that means is that Netanyahu's now, if him and his team are if there's obstacles for them traveling internationally, not only does that hurt them in a commodity sense, where these people go on extravagant vacations and, steal resources, from other countries, tourist spots, etc., but diplomatically, when it comes to forming relations, when it comes to participating in world government, if they're not physically able to go to other places, it physically isolates them. So that's the idea. So the U.S. is putting pressure on the ICC, particularly Joe Biden, because, again, Joe Biden or whoever would have been president, whether it was Obama or Trump or whoever, stopped their support Netanyahu and Israel. So the article, we go, I'm going to start a little bit farther down. Loves. Abu Shaban was in displacement camp in Rafah when she learned an Israeli missile had struck her home. My brother was killed at the beginning of November. He was there with another family that was displaced in our house. Abu Shaban, 38, told Al Jazeera, we heard from our neighbors that an ambulance was prevented from reaching them. Abu Shaban is one of tens of thousands of Palestinians hungry for justice after losing loved ones, property, and livelihoods to Israel's devastating war in Gaza, which began after Hamas led attack on Israeli communities and military outposts October 7th. Blah, blah, blah. About 1,139 Israelis were killed in the attack and 250 were taken captive. Since then, Israel has killed more than 35,500 Palestinians in a campaign of violence that the UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese and other legal experts have described as a genocide. Because it is a genocide. On May 20th, after months of gathering evidence, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, ICC, Carmen Khan, announced that he was seeking arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as for Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, the head of Movement's political bureau Ismail Hania, and the head of military wing Mohammed Deif. Netanyahu and Gallant are accused of using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, extermination, willfully causing great suffering, and deliberately directing attacks against civilians. Hamas leader was accused of extermination, taking hostages, and torture. All right, let me go down here for a little bit. U.S. threats. Weeks before Khan's announcement, senior Republican lawmakers in the U.S. submitted a letter to his office that threatened to bar him and his family from the country if he applied for warrants against Israeli leaders. In an interview with CNN's Christine Amanpour, Khan said a senior U.S. elected official even told that the ICC was built for Africa and for thugs like Russian President Putin, but not Western or Western-backed leaders. Now, that right there, it's clear as day. It is showing you where Western hegemony lies. They believe that the United States, North America, to an extent, Western Europe, are the dominant force in the world. I mean, they are in terms of capitalist market, monopolies, whatever. But like on an intellectual, superior, and an ethnic, on a cultural basis that they are, that the rule of law doesn't apply to them because that's exactly what it is. The rule of law is not actual law. It is rules for the others. In this case, they said, it's for Africa, so you can denote the connotation there when they say thugs. Or also Vladimir Putin. Now, why Putin? Even though he's part of Europe, he's a capitalist. Again, remember, because when us communists, when we examine the so-called multipolar world, we have to understand that there are different competing imperial interests. Whether or not a country or nation, a block of nations has reached the same capacity that the United States is able to participate in imperialism, Russia has those desires. Not even necessarily if you ex-nate the invasion of Ukraine, simply from being a capitalist, from participating in capital, in monopoly capitalism, you are inevitably looking to expand into markets. That's what Russia does. That's what the United States does. That's what all these other micro empires do. So in this case, this is why Putin is punished and is lumped in sort of with this lesser, African nations or what have you.
They just make him sound cool. They called him a thug. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's gangster.
Picture him. He's all tatted up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Silly.
I want a comment I want to highlight real here. If you want to, can you highlight Tsar Rasputin's comment real quick, Lumps?
I don't know what you just said.
Tsar Rasputin on the Twitch said something. Can you put it up on screen?
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
There you go.
Talking to my family regarding how they should speak up, but they just don't care, which I don't know how to respond to besides what the fuck. Yeah, man, it's hard. It's not it's not an easy thing to talk about or to face. Really, the best advice I can give you is you have to weigh how much of a relationship you can maintain. So like for me, example, I guess I'm already kind of at the advantage where I was never really that close with my parents. So when they don't actively participate or have these conversations, I kind of already have that acceptance that we're not on the same page. It doesn't mean I don't love them. I mean, that's what makes it difficult. It just means that I know that we're on two different paths. That I'm doing the work that I'm doing, they're going to continue what they're doing. And you have to understand that if you continue the work that you're doing, that you're participating in, that you may become ostracized. And that's not an easy pill to swallow. But that's why you meet different comrades, and you have people that you can lean on, to try to make that transition easier. What were you gonna say, Cruz?
I was gonna say for me, for like my advice in dealing with that, because my family is very right wing, and they will say off comments, and all you can really do, my advice is stand your ground, make your point, and then isolate from them as much as possible, because ultimately what gets your family kind of not necessarily changing their mind, but because they want to talk to you, unless they're outright ostracizing you to the point of disowning you. If they want to talk to you, they're gonna have to accept that if you're standing by your beliefs, they're gonna have to start accepting your beliefs, or you're not gonna be there. You are going to be the one to leave the relationship and not the other way around. Like with my dad, when I'm dealing with him, it's like, look, I just won't talk to you. You're not going to kick me out of your life. I will remove myself if you keep supporting children getting butchered.
Even on the inverse of that, of like somebody who's not particularly like, let's say, hostile to like your political philosophy and your beliefs. So like my own father, who came from a country that went through a civil war, is constantly concerned with my association with certain people or the trouble I'm getting into. He's very much, and I talk about this in my Chicano Stalinist video, more of like keep your head down, keep it moving type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to understand that there will be a distance between us because he doesn't understand why I am as passionate as I am. Or maybe he does, but he has that fear as opposed to me where I'm not really scared. I mean, I put my whole face on here. You could very easily figure out where I am. I've said it before, who I am, blah, 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 but you have to weigh,
oh, hey.
There he is. You have to weigh, what is it worth to you? What's going on, Camarito Putapie?
Yeah, I agree. Only comrades, only cowards, they hide their face for sure.
You
Fan 45718. What's that?
You weren't in Gen Chat, really.
Damn.
You missed it. In joke.
Shame.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's you got any advice for our young comrade Larry?
Not really. I don't put up. I'm old, man. I don't put up with it.
Larry said, "Fuck them."
Yeah, I don't give a shit who you are. If you're, I mean, apathy is one thing. Like if I can't make people care about something, but if like they're so overlooking it to the point where like it, they'll argue a position where like, I've got people in my life that don't ever comment on it and whatever, and that's that's fine. But they're not explicitly supporting what's going on.
Right.
Anybody in my life that I know of that actually supports what's going on would not say it to me. They fucking know better.
Like, this is gonna be a whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's gonna be a whole thing. So no, I don't know. I don't know. I just live by keeping people in fear of me.
He's pretty pissed.
I don't know. I'm combative, so I'm sure lots of people have vast disagreements with me that they never bring up because they don't want to get roasted.
Fair enough.
So,
all right. So,
yeah, I don't know. That's my
all right. Keep it moving.
Advice.
So I'm just going to start back up. In an interview with CNN, Christine Ampar-Khan said a senior U.S. elected official even told him that the ICC was built for Africa and for thugs like Russia's President Vladimir Putin. And then, of course, the ad came up, so now I've lost my space. We don't view it like that, Khan said. Okay, it keeps happening. This court is a legacy of Nuremberg, and this court is a sad indictment of humanity, and this court should be a triumph of lay over power of brute force. U.S. President Joe Biden criticized Khan's decision by calling the application of indictments against Israeli leaders outrageous. Biden, U.S. Secretary of State Attorney Antony Blinken, and several U.S. lawmakers said Khan had drawn a false moral equivalency, oh my goodness, between Hamas terrorists and democratically elected Israeli leaders. Netanyahu, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau all made similar statements. Again, it's more of the same thing. The Western world not applying the rules they put on to the third world or other competing imperial nations to them because they're the top dogs. The rules are for you guys, not for me. Very authoritative, you know. But
That's wait. Are you saying the United States is authoritarian?
No, bro. We're democratically elected. We're a constitutional republic, dog. We just arrested the Cheeto, bro. What are you saying?
Free world.
Rocking in the free world.
You've got me thinking. I think this authoritarian thing needs to be investigated.
Read on authority.
By who? The ICC? The ICJ?
Yes.
So
Colombo, maybe.
I mean, so in more positive news, we have mapping which countries recognize Palestine in 2024. So we can see that there is a net positive. I mean, it's not exactly what we would like in terms of stopping the situation as it's going on, but we now have essentially the majority of the planet's nations recognizing that Palestine should be a state. Just looking at the map here, pretty much you can guess who are the likely culprits who don't recognize Palestine. The United States, Canada, Greenland, France, England. That looks like Germany, Italy, Denmark. I think that's Sweden or Norway. What do we got down here? We got Australia, Japan, South Korea, and I don't want to say that's Cambodia, but it's like around that region down there in Southeast Asia. But yeah, basically, who are the U.S.'s lackeys? Those are the ones who support. Here, Lumpy's got the picture. Oh, no, Lumpy doesn't have the picture. Those are the ones who support whatever the United States backs. Norway, Ireland, and Spain have formally recognized Palestine as a state. However, the announcement earned only fury from Israel, widening its disagreements with some European Union states over the continuing war in Gaza. Israelis called its envoys in 3 countries last week for urgent consultations. Basically, they're going to yell at them. Foreign Minister Israel Katz said in a statement on Wednesday that he was sending a sharp message. Israel will not go over this in silence. In addition, Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich said he will stop transferring tax funds to the Palestinian Authority. Israel, which occupies the West Bank illegally under international law, is required to transfer tax collected for the Palestinian territory to PA, which governs it. Norway, Spain, and Ireland made their announcements as a growing number of nations, probably considering the recognition of Palestine as a state. That is especially so in Europe, traditionally an outlier on the issue. Slovenia, Malta, Belgium, or other nations on the continent, they're discussing whether and when to recognize Palestinian statehood. At that moment, in addition to Norway, Ireland, and Spain, 9 other European countries recognize the state. It's interesting, right? Because, like, one could argue that this is pretty much just, like, fluff. That, you know, well, we tried, and now all the Palestinians are dead, you know, within the next year. But at the same time, it also shows that these nations are seeing the backlash of their own populations having their uprisings and encampments and stuff to protest their complicity in genocide. So there is sort of this drumbeat that is forming of like, we should give concessions to the poorest because they're getting a little too ornery for our liking. We, you know, maybe we should stop this. So it is a hopeful thing for me. I do wonder how that will translate in the future. Whether or not, you know, there are Palestinians left in the indigenous areas. Well, I mean, there will be because Israel is going to need a workforce that they're essentially going to want to use as essentially slaves in order to build their new oceanside houses. Again, more man-made horrors beyond human comprehension. Am I right, lads?
I've seen too many of those.
Especially. And that Southeast Asian country that you were referring to, that's Myanmar that does not recognize Palestine.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Myanmar, which is currently under a military junta, which is getting its ass handed to it recently. So good news.
Their
Yeah,
economy's
they're in the
falling
they're in the
over.
middle of like a 9-way civil war right now.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
Baller, I guess. That makes sense now. I didn't realize it. I was like, I can't remember who's over there.
they're in the
Safe to say
current
they have
struggle.
other shit to do than be recognizing different countries.
Yeah, they literally have a war going on at the moment.
Yeah,
So
All right.
Don't fight.
So we're gonna do one more piece of Middle Eastern Gaza news, and then we'll transition to question of the week. But this one is a little bit more based and red-pilled, as the kids say. Houthis claim missile attack on U.S. aircraft carrier. What we know. We always support strikes against the empire. The context. The conflict between the Houthis and the Saudi-led coalition supported by the U.S. and UK has been ongoing since 2015. Conflict has escalated in response to Israel-Hamas war. Recent strikes by U.S. and UK targeted Houthis positions in the Yemeni province of Sana'a. I'm not going to try to read that. In response, the Houthis launched what they described as retaliatory missile attacks on the Eisenhower. What we know. Houthi military spokesman Yani Sari stated in a televised announcement that the missile attack was a direct response to the coalition's recent operation in Yemen. The Eisenhower has been involved in operations in the Red Sea since January. Sari stated in a televised announcement that the missile attack on the Eisenhower was a direct response to the coalition's recent airstrikes in Yemen. Sari claimed the attack involved both winged and ballistic missiles and described the hits as accurate and direct. The U.S. and UK have been conducting strikes against Houthi targets in retaliation for attacks on international shipping. On May 30th, the UK took part in a joint operation of U.S. forces to target Houthi military facilities in Yemen. This operation took place in order to hinder the Houthi rebels' capacity to attack international shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Houthi sites in Yemen were bombed by RAF jets, according to British military chiefs. The Houthis have attacked over 50 vessels, according to the U.S. Maritime Administration. What's next? The U.S. military has stated that it would continue its operations in the Red Sea to safeguard maritime routes and counter Houthi threats. Houthis' actions are supported by Iran, which provides the rebels with weapons, technology, and intelligence. You get it, the same old propaganda. So based Houthis for having the gall to strike at U.S. assets in such a brazen manner. Again, they're like literally the only ones really outside of Palestinians who are actively combating Western imperial forces. So again, I always go over this. As communists, do we ideologically agree with the Houthis? No. Do we support strikes against the empire? Absolutely. Thoughts on that, my guys?
It's like I know it's still kind of a developing situation. Trying to find out more information. It doesn't look like there's been any updates of any kind in the last 8 hours. Like the latest article I've seen is from 8 hours ago, and the headlines keep changing. Where it'll be like, I'll see, oh no, they didn't hit it, and then that same article I'm seeing a few minutes later, and it's saying Yemen says they hit it. So it's like hard to say. And I just had a friend, because I had posted something on my Instagram. Mint Press News had posted that Yemen claimed to strike the Eisenhower, and I had a friend message me just now going, "Hey, we have some friends on that ship, and we haven't heard anything from them. So we don't. They're like, we hadn't heard about a hit, and they're trying to get in contact to see if they can verify, because that ship actually left my city not too long ago."
I wonder if in the next couple of weeks we'll have an article about a helicopter crash or some sort, or some kind of boating accident that claimed the lives of 10 to 12 sailors mysteriously. Because that tends to happen quite a bit with the U.S.'s mighty military and industrial complex. A lot of helicopters and plane crashes in the middle of nowhere. I wonder if that's connected, but what do I know?
And it's not surprising that the Department of Defense isn't outright saying, "Oh yeah, we took a major hit on an aircraft carrier," which is supposed to be like, they're supposed to be unsinkable, invincible, and they're not going to admit that the Houthis hit it with.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, because they're just a bunch of goobers, a bunch of rebels, a bunch of guys, goofy goofballs who, they don't even speak English, bro. They don't know how to use weapons, All right, Larry, you want to talk about the question of the week? Or technically two? I don't know if it was planned.
Question of the week. So the question of the week was, what is finance capital? Let's see what people had to say. Comrade Whoopsie says it's the merger of bank capital and industrial capital. Industry is dependent on bank credit to grow. More or less correct. And banks are dependent on industry making profit to guarantee a return on their loans. Exactly. Though by bank capital, it really means money capital, as the entities that provide money are not just banks. Exactly. Asset management companies are the biggest source of capital. That's certainly a modern day feature of finance capital. Yes. Let's see. Finance capital is the merger of bank capital and industrial capital. This happens when at the monopoly stage of capitalism is integral to capitalist imperialism. Yes. I am not sure on this one. Excited for the answers. Well, you're getting them now, pal.
Yep. Totally acceptable answer.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
anyone.
Like I said, I'm happy to see people that are just like, I don't fucking know. That's, at one point, I didn't fucking know. I had to ask. The investing in currencies, bonds, or stock for profit, a way for non-laborers to profit by exploiting laborers. Kind of. Anyway. So, here's our comrade's video. He made a response to us.
Do we want to pause and then read it?
Yeah,
Sure,
I did.
yeah.
Because it was going a little too quick for me.
Yeah, I can't read that. I can't read that fast. My eyes are. Okay, finance capital, Marxist-Leninist perspective. Marxist-Leninists view finance capital as a distinct stage in the development of capitalism, marked by the fusion of industrial capital with bank capital. This fusion concentrates immense economic power in the hands of a small financial elite and exacerbates the inherent contradictions of capitalism. Here's a breakdown of the key aspects. Go on to page 2. All right, before finance capital, industrial capitalism. In the early stages of capitalism, industrialists owned and operated factories, and banks primarily facilitated basic transactions like loans and deposits. Beautiful. Emergence of finance capital, fusion of capital. As capitalism matured, banks accumulated vast wealth and began investing directly in industrial enterprises. This created a powerful new entity, finance capital. Interlocking directorates. Banks and corporations formed close relationships with bankers, often sitting on the boards of directors and of industrial companies, blurring the lines between the two. Absolutely.
Yep.
Emergence of finance capital, continued control over investment. Finance capital gained significant control over investment decisions, determining which industries received funding and shaping overall direction of the economy. Consequences of finance capital from an ML perspective: increased inequality. The concentration of wealth in the hands of financiers widens the gap between rich and poor. This is absolutely true. Monopoly capitalism. Finance capital fosters the growth of monopolies and cartels as banks supply mergers and acquisitions create dominant players in various industries. This stifles competition and reduces consumer choice. But we have 40 different flavors of barbecue sauce, okay? You have a choice.
And they're all owned by one.
Have you ever had Sweet Baby Ray's?
Consequences of continued imperialism. The search for new markets and investment opportunities drives finance capital to seek control of resources and markets globally, often leading to imperialism and war. I would edit that to say just often leading to war, because imperialism is just imperialism. That's a nitpick, though. I'm a nitpicker. The pursuit of ever high profits by financial institutions can lead to reckless speculation and economic crashes. Absolutely. Marxist-Leninists argue that finance capital exposes inherent contradictions of of capitalism, profit versus production. The focus on short-term profits for financiers can come at the expense of long-term investment in productive capacity. Absolutely. Crises. The boom and bust cycles of capitalism become more severe under financed capital as reckless financial speculation can trigger devastating economic crises. Absolutely. Socialist revolution. Oh my God. The solution, according to Marxist-Leninists, is to overthrow. What is this? The system of finance capital through a socialist revolution? This is news to me.
What are you guys talking about?
This would involve bringing industries under public ownership and democratic control, aiming for a more equitable distribution of wealth, planned economy, focused on social well-being, etc. Yeah. Important to note, this is a simplified overview of a complex topic. Yes, I agree.
Of course.
But very, very good. Very good.
That was a fantastic response.
That was an excellent response. So
you win.
Yeah. So where did this these are all great definitions and everything. Who is the person that actually really synthesized this idea? It wasn't Lenin. Finance capital did not come from Lenin. It came from a gentleman who was it's always the Austrians with the economics. It's their thing. Rudolf Hilferding, he was basically a huge influence. He was a contemporary of Lenin. And I just wanted to read a little bit from what he says on the matter. He wrote a book in 1910 called Finance Capital. And here's an excerpt from that. The dependence of industry on the banks is therefore a consequence of property relationships. An ever-increasing part of capital of industry does not belong to the industrialists who use it. They are able to dispose over capital only through the banks, which represent the owners. On the other side, the banks have to invest an ever-increasing part of their capital in industry, and in this way, they have to become greater and greater extent industrial capitalists. I call bank capital. That is capital in money form, which is actually transformed in this way into industrial capital, finance capital. So as far as its owner is concerned, it always retains the money form. It is invested by them in the form of money capital, interest-bearing capital, and can always be withdrawn by them as money capital. But in reality, the greater part of the capital so invested with the banks is transformed into industrial, productive capital, means of production and labor power, etc., is invested in the productive process. An ever-increasing proportion of the capital used in industry is finance capital, capital at the disposition of banks, which is used by the industrialists.
Slay.
So that is finance capital. And what does that look like? It's essentially profiting off of money rather than pure commodity production. Like commodity production is the beginning point of capitalism. It's commodity production existed for thousands of years. Of course, people made things in order to sell them rather than to use them. But capitalism developed as a consequence of several historical phenomena becoming converged at one point to where commodity production became the dominant form of the productive forces of society. And as more and more commodities are produced, capital is accumulated at such a rate that essentially you start getting these trusts, these cartels, these monopolies that are just making money off of money.
Yep.
Money is now a commodity. And at this point, we can see through things like the recent crises of Red Lobster and so on, that you can actually you can make money off of money, and you can use capitalist enterprises themselves as money.
Yeah.
The
Red Lobster thing is actually just really interesting because it's like they just bought the land
yes
around the Red Lobsters and then leased it back to them.
Yes.
To a point where they couldn't afford it. And then Red Lobster comes out and they're like, it's because of the shrimp. We
It's the
fucked
shrimp.
up with the shrimp.
It's the shrimp. That's the bourgeois position. It's you greedy goddamn workers who ate too much of our free shrimp.
It's like you're coming in here, you're eating as many shrimp that you're eating, and you're not buying anything else. Therefore, your favorite restaurant
Me
is
with
now
Texas Roadhouse.
Just eat all
gone.
the bones.
Just for the
Show
bread.
Just
So,
get
yeah.
some wings and just be like, give me more bread. Bring it all. Bring me more bread.
That is essentially the dominant, when we talk about things like BlackRock and Bain and all these things. These are finance capitalists. These are the it's not the shadowy
Something Illuminati.
Illuminati or New World Order. No, it's just a few conglomerates that own so much shit. Their capital is just not productive. It's just money making money, and these entities wind up fighting each other on a global scale, and that's the outcome of everything that all these global conflicts that are going on at the moment can be tied back to that set of social relations of monopoly and cartel level finance capital. It's all tied into that.
And if you want Larry to give you a lecture and a chance to be on the Collective podcast, answer by Monday, or should be posted on Monday, the next question of the week.
Yeah,
I want Larry to bully you. Just say.
You
Say
just
some
say,
nonsense.
I don't know. And it'll be featured. Yeah. No, I think that was fantastic explanation, Larry. Going to like the Red Lobster thing, like in my immediate area, is crazy because people were working that restaurant for like 10, 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then they literally were like, all right, time to work tomorrow. And everyone's like, bro, it's gone. Like, no
What
service,
work?
no nothing, no
Yeah.
whatever. I know a couple people in my area up there trying to sue, but I'm sure Red Lobster they've planned this. They know, how much they're gonna settle. They know what they can fight. Like it's just gonna be
And
a
that's
mess.
not,
It's gonna go on
that's
for
not
years.
uncommon. It's not uncommon for places like that to just suddenly close, and then the workers fucked. Doesn't matter how long you work there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's bananas. All right, let's touch on two more current events, and then we'll call it boys. So we got this should be updated, but I'm just gonna read the title as is. 3 Americans accused of involvement in the Congo coup attempt. Here's what we know about what happened. And I believe the update British citizen and 3 Americans penalty in DR Congo. All right. Man said to be a British citizen alongside 3 Americans may face death penalty after a failed coup attempt in the DRC. Izangi Yusuf alongside Marcel Malenga, Tyler Thompson, Benjamin Rubin, Zalman, Paulin, gosh dang, was part of a doomed push led by Christian Malenga, a self-styled opposition figure. Home chef, overly ready meals. Military spokesman Major General Slavin, god damn, I can barely see this, said an integration to the men continues. That's not your fault, Lumpy. This is I'm using my phone. Continues as they will be handed to a military tribunal as opposed to regular court. Comes after a ban on the death penalty was recently lifted for convictions linked to the conflict in the east of the country. Continue
this like
reading.
it's a race, brother. God damn.
In the early hours of May 19th, a group of around 50 men armed in camouflage attacked the residence of the Prime Minister, a defense minister, and a senior politician in the capital, Kinshasa. Soon after security forces moved in, killing the group leaders, U.S.-based Congolese politician Christian Malenga, and 3 others, around 40 others were arrested, the army said. Congo authorities and participants in the coup attempt included foreigners and Congolese citizens. 3 U.S. citizens, including Malenga's son, were among those detained. One of the assailants was U.S. citizen Benjamin Zalman. Local media described him as a medical marijuana entrepreneur who had also involved in the mining interests in Malenga. So, yeah, he's a capitalist, or at least a wannabe capitalist, who found some kind of stake that he wanted to claim in a country that's already, dealing with massive internal destabilization. So, if we could just take over, we can make a bunch of money here. That's just
Yep.
it all relates. It all goes back to the green.
Really went. I gotta create my weed paradise in the Congo.
All bro had to do was take it out. But again, it goes to show how people. It's basic dialectics. It's why are there always coups in Africa? Why are there corrupt leaders in Africa? Why is Africa the way that it is? It's because of people like this, people who participate in the overthrow or attempted overthrow, in the attempt to make more money, to participate in finance capital and monopoly. All the locals be damned, but we just gotta, make a bunch of money, sell a bunch of weed. I don't know. It's almost cartoonish, really, to break it down like that. But like, these people had these genuine ideas to do something like this.
Has hustle culture gone too far?
How do you consider attempting coups as a side hustle?
It's not. As an aspiring venture capitalist myself, I would not invest in that industry. No way.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got one more. I'm yapped out, Cruz. Can you read the last one? It's the South African election.
Absolutely. South Africa elections live results 2024 by the numbers on day 2. With more than 90% of the votes counted, results show the ruling ANC could lose their majority and be forced to seek coalition partner. So it looks like the ANC has 41.03% of the votes, DA with 21.72%, MKP with 13.69%, and the EFF with 9.47%. Now, I don't personally know what these parties represent. I'm assuming the rest of it is going to tell us.
EFF is based.
They're doing worse than they did in the 2019 election. They're down that percentage right now.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, that MK party is basically it's a splinter off of the ANC, which is why the ANC's number is a lot lower.
Okay, so the vote got split.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, if the vote gets split, then Trump wins, right?
Yeah. Trump is going to be in control of South Africa. That's how this works.
Okay. That's what I got from this. Thank you.
So it says, with more than 90% of the ballots counted, the ruling African National Congress, ANC, is leading with just over 40% share of the national vote, 2 days after the country voted in national elections that could throw up the biggest challenge to the ANC's political dominance since the end of apartheid in South Africa. The Democratic Alliance, DA, the country's principal opposition party, is currently in second place, followed by the MK party and EFF. Here's how the top 4 parties are doing. Is this kind of a repeat of the?
Yeah,
it looks the same.
Voter turnout is down by like 10% too.
What if no party receives a majority? If the ANC does not receive more than 50% of the vote, it will need to make a deal with other parties to form a coalition government. The choice of coalition partner will depend on the support needed to cross the 50% mark. Unless the ANC's performance is much worse than expected, there is little chance it could be completely removed from power.
I like how the government thing is in blue with like the little line under it. Like,
yeah,
you would be reading this and be like, "What is a government?" Let me click on this real quick.
I've never heard of a government before. Could you explain that to me, please? Which are the main parties in the race? 4 of the biggest players to watch for this year: the ANC, the DA, MK, and the Economic Freedom Fighters. So it's with the ANC, Cyril
John
Ramaphosa.
Englehausen.
Yeah. John. Yeah.
White guy.
The ANC has won all national elections since the end of apartheid in 1994, when Nelson Mandela became the country's first black president. In 1994, the ANC won 62.5% of the vote. In 1999, it won 66.4%. In 2004, it reached its highest levels, clinching almost 70% of the vote. In 2009, it won nearly 66%, and in 2014, it won 62%. And in the last election, the ANC of 2019, the ANC achieved its lowest margin of victory, winning 57.5% of the vote. So ultimately, we could say, it's like, what does this mean for South Africa?
What does it mean?
I thought, I thought Trump was going to win.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Well, we're lucky, he got convicted, because then he's not going to be president of South Africa.
But where does Elon Musk fall into all this?
You see, he was running for the ANC, but unfortunately, he got taken off the ballot.
I thought Trump was an EFF guy. Come on. I think it's interesting to see what a country who, they're operating under a parliamentary system rather than the goofy system that we use for our democracy. And it's interesting to see what, 9 or 10% looks like for a communist or socialist party, who's really not, sock dems or something like
Right.
EFF. Like, this is, their political party. They have revolutionary aspirations, of course. So to actually see what it looks like, and I don't know hardly anything about the current state of the South African struggle whatsoever. But it's interesting to see a communist party with that much support. We can hope.
We can only hope those numbers go
The
up.
world will be a changing, boys.
I mean, yeah, even if they got to 70%, would that achieve communism? No, of course not.
No.
I mean, we touched on this a little bit yesterday in our own private chat. Like, just the amount of ballots that the PSL have been able to get on within the last couple of months is crazy. Doesn't mean the communist revolutions, utopia is coming tomorrow. No, but it means that there is evidence that there is change. There is a desire for movement around the world. We'll see repression against that for sure. You can count, that's a guarantee. But it just means, again, as we say pretty much every episode, you gotta keep doing what you're doing.
Keep agitating.
Do you
We just got to make sure we don't wind up doing it wrong and getting crony communism.
Yeah. We don't
Crony
want
communism, the antithesis to crony capitalism.
It's
correct?
bad news. It's bad news.
Do you think the in defense of the MAGA communism article, it was intentionally coinciding with Donald Trump's arrest, or that was just a joke?
Nah. I think that was just a fluff piece to basically say hey, I'm hanging out with these real assholes, and here's why: because my coach is a Republican.
Yeah. I keep seeing, because TikTok thinks I'm a live again. They keep sending me TikToks where they're MAGA people being super mad at Trump's and going to jail or whatever. And I'm like, I don't so much care for that, because I know those people want to kill me and hang me. I'm more annoyed with the liberals who are like, we did it. And it's just bro,
Yeah, wait, everything's saved.
Spiking the football because because what? He's got 34 convictions now. Okay. Sentencing is July 11th.
Yeah, it's
show me what that looks like.
A lot can happen between them. Who knows?
Bernie Sanders runs for the Republican Party.
All right, boys. Any final thoughts on this glorious Friday?
No.
No.
Dang.
Not
Eat
at all.
rocks. Don't do adventurism. Or do. I don't care. Have fun. I don't know.
We don't.
If you're gonna do adventurism, at least be fun about it.
And make it fucking count. If you're gonna do adventurism, make it count.
Stop. We can't tell these goofballs in our Discord not to do that, and you guys are gonna be here
Start
being
doing
like,
shit-ins.
Make a count.
Do
Make it
shit-ins
count. That's all I'm
immediately.
saying. That is all I'm saying. Shit as much as you possibly can.
All right, listen. All I'm gonna say is, if you do it, don't post about it in the Discord.
Unless it's a
keep
shit-in.
Unless it's shit.
Do a shit-in.
Ivan
the
said
box.
doo doo. Ivan said doo doo.
You're done. Get out of here.
Yeah, end it. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Bye.